Hey, ladies. So here I am, and I'm hoping that we can do some more of the Bible studies and I can be better about getting them out. It's hard. I know that's an excuse, but hoping to do better. So today I want to start my series with you on obscure godly women of the Bible. And this is a series I've been doing with some women in my church. We meet once a month. We do a couple of different things, but we end with a Bible study. And so I wanted to bring some of this to you because I've learned some really neat things putting it together. So I hope you do as well. Now, today's lesson is going to be about Abigail, and she was wise during a crisis. And I am going to read the entire chapter of 1 Samuel 25, but I'm a very fast reader. So follow along. I'm going to start in verse, what is it, 1.5. This is kind of small. I'm hoping I can see it. We'll find out. Then David rose and went down to the wilderness of Paran, and there was a man in Maon whose business was in Carmel. The man was very rich. He had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. He was shearing his sheep in Carmel. Now the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife Abigail. The woman was discerning and beautiful, but the man was harsh and badly behaved. He was a Calebite. David heard in the wilderness that Nabal was shearing his sheep, so David sent 10 young men. And David said to the young men, "Go up to Carmel and go to Nabal and greet him in my name. And thus you shall greet him. Peace be to you, and peace be to your house, and peace be to all that you have. I hear that you have shearers. Now your shepherds have been with us, and we did them no harm, and they missed nothing all the time they were in Carmel." Pardon me. "Ask your young men, and they will tell you. Therefore, let my young men find favor in your eyes, for we come on a feast today. Please give whatever you have at hand to your servants and to your son David." When David's young men came, they said all this to Nabal in the name of David, and then they waited. And Nabal answered David's servants, "Who is David? Who is the son of Jesse? There are many servants these days who are breaking away from their masters. Shall I take my bread and my water and my meat that I've killed for my shearers and give it to men who come from I don't know where?" So David's young men turned away and came back and told him all of this. And David said to his men, "Every man strap on his sword," and every man of them strapped on his sword. David also strapped on his sword. And about 400 men went up after David, while 200 remained with the baggage. But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, "Behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to greet our master, and he railed at them. Yet the men were very good to us, and we suffered no harm. And we did not miss anything when we were in the fields, as long as we went with them. They were a wall to us both by night and by day, all the while we were with them keeping the sheep. Now therefore know this and consider what you should do, for harm is determined against our master and against all his house, and he is such a worthless man that one cannot speak to him." And Abigail made haste and took 200 loaves and 2 skins of wine and 5 sheep already prepared, and 5 seahs of parched grain, and 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 cakes of figs, and laid them on donkeys. And she said to her young men, "Go on before me, behold, I come after you." But she did not tell her husband Nabal. And as she rode on the donkey and came down under cover of the mountain, behold, David and his men came down toward her, and she met them. Now David had said, "Surely in vain have I guarded all that this fellow has in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that belonged to him, and he has returned me evil for good. God do so to the enemies of David, and more also, if by morning I leave so much as one male of all who belong to him." When Abigail saw David, she hurried and got down from the donkey and fell before David on her face and bowed to the ground. She fell at his feet and said, "On me alone, my lord, be the guilt. Please let your servant speak in your ears and hear the words of your servant. Let not my lord regard this worthless fellow Nabal, for as his name is, so is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. But I, your servant, did not see the young men of my lord whom you sent. Now then, my lord, as the Lord lives and as your soul lives, because the Lord has restrained you from blood guilt and from saving with your own hand. Now then, let your enemies and those who seek to do evil to my Lord be as Nabal. And now let this present that your servant has brought to my Lord be given to the young men who follow my Lord. Please forgive the trespass of your servant, for the Lord will certainly make my Lord a sure house, because my Lord is fighting the battles of the Lord, and evil shall not be found in you so long as you live. If men rise up to pursue you and to seek your life, the life of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of the living, in the bundle of the living in the care of the Lord your God. And the lives of your enemies he shall sling out as from the hollows of a sling. And when the Lord has done to my Lord according to all the good that he has spoken concerning you, and has appointed you prince over Israel, my Lord shall have no cause of grief or pangs of conscience for having shed blood without cause, or for my Lord working salvation himself. And when the Lord has dealt with my Lord, then remember your servant. And David said to Abigail, Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who sent you this day to meet me. Blessed be your discretion, and blessed be you, who have kept me this day from blood guilt, and from working salvation with my own hand. For as surely as the Lord, the God of Israel, lives, who has restrained me from hurting you, unless you had hurried and come to meet me, truly by morning there had not been left to Nabal so much as one male. Then David received from her hand what she had brought him, and he said to her, Go up in peace to your house. See, I have obeyed your voice, and I have granted your petition. And Abigail came to Nabal, and behold, he was holding a feast in his house, like the feast of a king. And Nabal's heart was merry within him, for he was very drunk. So she told him nothing at all until the morning light. In the morning, when the wine had gone out of Nabal, his wife told him these things, and his heart died within him, and he became as a stone. And about 10 days later, the Lord struck Nabal, and he died. When David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, Blessed be the Lord who has avenged the insult I received at the hand of Nabal, and has kept back his servant from wrongdoing. The Lord has returned the evil of Nabal on his own head. Then David sent and spoke to Abigail to take her as his wife. When the servants of David came to Abigail at Carmel, they said to her, David has sent us to you to take you to him as his wife. And she rose and bowed with her face to the ground and said, Behold, your handmaid is a servant to wash the feet of the servants of my Lord. And Abigail hurried and rose and mounted a donkey, and her 5 young women attended her. She followed the messengers of David and became his wife. Okay, that was a lot of reading, even for a reading specialist, right? So in the email that I'm sharing with you, you will find a blank copy of a place where you can take notes if you would like. Let's start off by talking about what are some of the characteristics of Abigail we find in verses 2 through 4. So looking back in 2 through 4, this is like a reading lesson, isn't it? Go back in 2 through 4 and you see that it talks about that she was a wife of a very rich man. I mean, he had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. Y'all, that's a lot. That is probably as many people that are in the city limits of Springtown. 3,000. So he was a very rich man. The next thing we find out is that she was discerning. Look here. The woman was discerning. What does discerning mean, actually? Well, probably an easy explanation is that she could look at things and see the truth in them, even when maybe the truth wasn't being presented. So she was discerning. She was beautiful. It does say that right here. If you see, it says she was discerning and beautiful. And she was most likely abused by Nabal. Now, think about women in these days. This is back in the Old Testament. This is in the day right before David becomes king. He's already been anointed, but he hasn't become king yet. So women were not always highly thought of anyway. And it says here that Nabal was harsh and badly behaved. Now, I realize I'm taking some supposition by saying that she was possibly abused by him, but based on his attitude, his behavior, and her response, it makes me think that he probably was not kind to her as well. Let me tell you, it is never, never, never okay for someone to abuse another person. Abuse is not cool. Sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse. Never do you see God condoning a woman being abused by a man like that. Or even, it could be the other way around, a man being abused by a woman like that. So I don't want you to ever think that that's okay. I do want to tell you, there are a lot of my grandmother, for example. My grandfather was a very abusive, verbally abusive man, and emotionally abusive, but very verbally abusive. My whole life, he adored me. He thought his first grandchild was just the cat's meow, and he loved my sister as well. But he and I had a special bond. However, I cannot tell you the number of times I heard him just ream out my grandmother for things that she didn't do, and it was very hard to see because my grandmother, for a very long time, was the breadwinner of the family. She was a very godly woman. She was amazing, and so I watched him abuse her for years, and we didn't understand why she just didn't walk away. And I'll never forget. I mean, she said, "I made a commitment to him before God, and I'm going to stay with him." And I'm not going to say that that's always the answer, and I hope you don't take it as that. In my grandmother's case, it was a beautiful representation, or a beautiful picture of her commitment to God. She stood before God and made a declaration she would take him for life. So, um, I think about that when I think about Abigail. She does remind me of my grandmother a little bit, because my grandmother would have every night my grandfather had to have a steak and bluebell strawberry ice cream for dinner. And I remember my grandmother always doing that. She would come in from work. She worked at General Dynamics, and she would come in from work and make his steak, get his ice cream. It was the same thing over and over, night after night. And you know what? She just kept doing it. Very much like Abigail. I mean, she already had a meal prepared, had food prepared that she was able to take to David. And so I'm not saying that any of that is the way it needs to be, but I am saying that Abigail does remind me of my grandmother a bit. And I will say, well, now I'm going to save that for another time. Well, I'm going to keep going. So what are some characteristics of Nabal we find in verses 2, 3, 10 through 11, and 17? Well, first we found out he was very rich. We mentioned that. We also mentioned that he was harsh and badly behaved. We also found out over here that Nabal was uncharitable. He said over here, "Who is David? Who is the son of Jesse? There are many servants these days who are breaking away from their master. Shall I take my bread and my water and my meat that I've killed for my shearers and give it to men who have come from who I don't know where?" Now, it's interesting because we don't have any record of someone saying that David is the son of Jesse. And yet, now they may have, and we just don't have record of that, but he does mention that. Now, at this time, David had been anointed as the second king of Israel. And Nabal had to have known that because, I mean, everybody kind of knew things were happening. So that he chose to be uncharitable to David was kind of a big deal, because David was going to be his king. And so I'm like, wow, I mean, if it were my king, I don't think I'd be going, "I'm not giving you my food." Anyway, that was it's kind of just blew my mind that Nabal would say, "Forget it. I'm not giving him anything." The last thing that we know was the servants considered him worthless. Look, this servant over here says, "Now, therefore we know this and consider what you should do, for harm is determined against our master and against all his house. And he is such a worthless man that one cannot speak to him." He was considered worthless by the servants. That's pretty bad. And that the servants would go to Abigail and tell her, this, or a servant would, and call him worthless. So this had the potential of causing a personal war in this family, because if David, Nabal said, "I'm not going to help David," and if David had gone in with his men like he had planned and killed all the males, this could have just changed everything for Abigail for sure, but for their family, this could have included her brothers, her dad, her father-in-law, her brother-in-laws. It could have included her sons. I don't know. It said every male that was part of Nabal's world. So this had the potential of being a major. And just like that, the video stopped recording because it had gone too long. So what I was saying was this had the potential of being a big disaster. And what was her response during this crisis? I mean, think about it. This was a big crisis. And what did she do? She prepared and delivered the food, even knowing that David could kill her or they could reject her. She was walking into a group of men that she didn't know. And remember, I said they didn't spend a lot of time they didn't have a lot of respect for women. So this could have been a huge disaster. But Abigail was cool as a cucumber. She prepared and delivered probably some cucumbers, or the food anyway. And she knew it could go bad, but she had a plan. She was headed in there. She was going to try to solve this. And in the midst of this tribulation, she did keep a cool head. She made a wise decision, and she approached the king with humility and bravery. She took the blame for the actions of her husband, even though he was a horrible person. I'm not telling you should do that. If your husband's a horrible person, but sometimes, and I struggle with this, I'm not going to lie, sometimes we have to take the blame for the actions of others. Ugh, I hate to even say it, but for the better of whatever the situation is. It's hard. I'm not going to lie, I struggle. And Abigail's intercession, wisdom, and bravery saved Nabal, the family, and the servants from destruction. Because she went and presented a case before David, she saved them all from destruction. And she was calm about it. She was calm. She didn't freak out when the servant came and said, "Hey, we got this problem." Abigail didn't freak out and start screaming like a chicken with their head cut off. She was wise. She knew, hey, I need to make a decision. I got to make this happen. The other thing that Abigail was really good at it, and it's another thing I struggle with badly, is that Abigail could have told, pardon that, we have an update. No update needed. Abigail could have told Nabal what had happened when he was drunk, but she was wise, and she knew the best time would be when he was sober. Y'all, I'm the worst at timing with Shane sometimes. That's my husband. Sometimes we may be laying in bed about to go to sleep, and I go, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, so-and-so said that so-and-so was really upset because we did such and such," or he might be having a rough moment, and I'm like, "I'm really sorry that you're feeling bad. Oh, I forgot to tell you, so-and-so died." I mean, just that kind of stuff. I'm terrible at it. I'm working hard to be better at it, but it is tough. Sometimes because I'm getting older and I just want to telling things when I remember. Anyway, but Abigail was wise, and she knew the best time would be when he was sober. So even though all this was going on, I mean, she could have told Nabal when he was drunk. Maybe he just slept it off and forgot it the next morning. I don't know, but she was wise, and she knew, hey, the best time to tell him this is when he's sober. Now, how can we be like Abigail? Are there times when we need to be brave and we aren't? Are there times when we aren't as wise as we could be? Think back to a time when you should have made wiser decisions, but you did not. Why didn't you make them? What was keeping you from it? Have you ever been in a crisis? If so, how did you react? Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm pretty good in a crisis, but when it's over, it takes everything out of me. I'm good in the moment, as most of you probably are. I think most women tend to be really good in the moment, and then when it's the end, we kind of go, but are you wise in a crisis? Do you know what to do? What is the first thing you do in a crisis? Do you pray? Do you seek God's direction? A lot of times in a crisis, we turn inward. We think, oh, how could this happen to me? Or why am I in the middle of this? Or, I don't know what to do to get out of this. And what am I going to do? And really and truly, the first thing we do in a crisis is we pray. And Abigail, because she had the gift of discernment, I'm going to guess that she probably prayed before she went before King David. And oftentimes that's the last thing we do in a crisis. Now, sometimes being wise in a crisis means getting out of the crisis. Sometimes you just need to get out of it. You don't need to be in the middle of it. I've seen situations where, someone has a medical emergency and all of a sudden everybody flocks to that person. And I'm thinking, I remember watching it one time and all these people flocked to this person that was having a medical emergency. And out of all these people, probably, sorry, my hands are not in the circle, but out of all these people, probably 2 of them had any business being with this person in a medical emergency. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know how to handle it at the time, but all of these people felt like they needed to be right involved in it. And sometimes being wise in a crisis means getting out of the crisis. There is no reason to insert yourself into something major if you don't have to. And it's tempting because we're caregivers. We want to take care. We want to help. And it's not always our place to do so. So sometimes being wise in a crisis means just getting out of it. Don't let panic overtake you, but let prayer peacefully embrace you. When my life on earth is over, there are a lot of things that I want people to not say about me. There are a lot of things I do want them to say about me. But one of the things I would like for people to say is, hey, Lisa was wise. She made wise decisions. She made wise decisions when it counted. She messed up sometimes, but you know what? She was really thoughtful and spent time in prayer and really prayed about things. Now, I will tell you this will be number 3 of my sins I'm telling you tonight, and which is why I look so, because it's been, 1, I have terrible lighting in here, and 2, what time is it? It's 9:15 at night, and then I just start talking more, but I'll try to keep it short. But one of my biggest struggles is I am a reactor. When something happens, I react with I need to fix it right now. And if you're a close friend of mine watching this, you know this about me. I mean, something happens and I'm like, okay, what do I need to do to fix it? And sometimes being wise in a crisis or in a situation means praying about it and just letting it be. I have something going on in my life right now. And my first response was, well, I'm going to take care of that right now. I'm going in guns blazing. Not really, that's a figurative language thing. Please don't take me seriously. But I'm going to go in there and take care of this. This was wrong. I need to fix it, blah, 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 blah. And you know what? One of you people watching this said, hang on, slow down. Let's take our time. Take your time. Think about it. Pray about it. Oh yeah. That's supposed to be my go-to. But my first go-to was, So don't let panic or the crisis overtake you. But you need to spend time in prayer. And I'm working on that reacting. I really am. I'm trying very hard to take a step back when things happen. I don't always, and recently I didn't probably, but I'm really trying to pray and say, hey, God, I need help with this because I want to go in and fix everything. And that's not what God has always called me to do. So some of you are school district employees, and some of you are friends on Facebook, and some of you are probably family. And all of you will be faced with a time when you're in crisis. You may not be yet, but you will be at some point. And here's the thing. Be wise. Be like Abigail. We got this. God's got this. And I pray that you'll take time to be wise. Let me close in prayer for us. Dear God, as I speak, I'm looking into a computer, but I know that this is going to reach people, Lord, that need wisdom on how to be wise during a crisis. And Lord, I just lift them up to you. I pray that they will rely on your word. They'll spend time in prayer, Lord, and that they'll think back to Abigail, Lord, and how she was wise, how she acted, but she acted appropriately and with bravery, and she did the right thing. And Lord, I pray that if there are times we need to get out of the middle of a crisis, that we will, Lord, that we won't put ourselves in situations that we don't belong in. Lord, we love and praise you. Thank you for this lesson on Abigail. In your holy and wonderful name I pray. Amen. Okay. I know I look like I need to go to bed. I really do have my clothes on. I haven't put my pajamas on, which is weird. And the blue light on my glasses is weird, and I'm sorry about that. But you know what? It's not about me. It's not about how I look. Thank heavens for that. I pray that this has touched your life tonight. And God bless you.